Well, it's early in the day. Good morning, people. It's early in the day, and I'm not working today, so I'm going to do another contact report. This is contact report number 22, and it was translated by a Deep L translator. I keep saying I'm going to figure out what that is. I'm thinking that's AI, but I'm not sure. Corrections and improvements made by Catherine Mossman and Joseph Darmanin. Again, my thanks to you people. And the contact person, of course, is Semjase. Thanks to Semjase and for Billy for making this possible. This is Contact Report 22, and it is Wednesday, the 28th of May, 1975, at 18:17 hours. That's 6:17 in the evening for you civilians. And let's go. Semjase, I am a little surprised that you called me again so soon after our last contact. Have you already found a solution to your problem, or have other important things arisen? Billy, my things are not very important, and I have not yet found a solution to the problem. However, I have forgotten to make you an important announcement, namely that Mr. K. Viet wants to come to me on the 2nd of June, perhaps also his wife and other humans, of whom I am not sure. How do you feel about that? Semjase, unfortunately, I have not followed this matter closely enough lately, but I know that a change of attitude in different humans is preparing itself, apparently a change for the better, which will be very helpful for our cause. But these things cannot yet be predicted in terms of time and effect, as various important factors are of crucial importance. The most important point here is a strong religious, even sectarian influence, which certain persons, such as Karl and Anna Viet, must personally break and overcome in themselves through their own knowledge of the truth. But nevertheless, I am very happy to hear from you that the first steps are already being taken and that my assumptions are being confirmed earlier than expected. Billy, I think you are tracking down certain things of importance in the future. Semjase, sure, but only if they are really important. But we simply have to let these things run their course and let time work. If it would be pointless for us to see the future. After all, the point here is that different humans steer their ways of thinking in the right direction and find the effective truth through their own findings. However, we must not influence this by force or by revealing facts of the future, which makes looking at the future unrealistic in the sense that knowing the future does not benefit us because we are not allowed to exploit knowledge. The future is to be seen only when the knowledge of the seen can find useful and successful application. The seeing of personal things and developmental facts of any life form in the future should not be done because each life form must go its way of normal development and must not be influenced by knowledge of future form in the sense that it can simply skip degrees of development without living through and experiencing the necessary experience of that degree. Billy, I find that logical, and the sense is also clear to me. It therefore makes no sense for us to continue discussing this meeting. Semjase, sure, that is correct. Yeah, sure, you did not just call me about this. Billy, of course not, because I would like to discuss something that we should have discussed long ago. After our contacts, you only send me our conversations up to a certain point. That means that you only give me the main conversation while you never send the closing words, the farewell, the actual private things, and also the greeting. Greetings, farewells, and purely private things should not be important for humans in this matter either, but we have often negotiated things that would also be important for my fellow human beings. I mean those things that do not fall under my confidentiality. Can you not change that? Semjase, if it is your wish, then of course, but I do not want to burden you with too much work. Excuse me. Since our private and commission things, etc., really do not belong in the reports and may not be mentioned partly, I could transmit the special things still discussed afterwards simply as an appendix. Billy, that would be fine with me, and I would be happy to take this extra work on myself. Semjase, as you wish. I would be happy to follow your wishes in these matters. Billy, thank you, Semjase, but can you explain to me once why your mental transmissions always appear so stereotypical in me at a later point in time, and that there are no repetitions of any words or sentences? These later transmissions of our conversations are so completely different than when we are in intellectual exchange with each other. I often have a lot of trouble writing your reports because you just keep dictating and never repeat a word. Your report submissions come into my consciousness just as we did the conversation. This often leads to the fact that I have to omit words or entire phrases when writing in order to be able to follow dictation in writing at all. This is not always the case, but it is often the case that I write wrong words. Semjase, I have expected these questions from you for a long time, and I have wondered for a long time about the fact that you have so persistently remained silent about it. However, I will try to make the necessary corrections together with you in the written interview reports. All right. And similar to Billy, I also have material things to take care of. Sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, Billy, I wanted to solve the mystery myself. And I think that it is very good that you want to help me with corrections, because the contact reports should be correct. Semjase, so did you did you find the answer to the riddle? Billy, I do not know. Sometimes in your transmissions it seems to me as if your thoughts are a mechanical sequence, as if they were coming out of a machine. I always have to think of a tape that reproduces exactly what it has recorded. Therefore, I have come to the conclusion that you do not carry out your transmissions personally. What happens is after Billy and Semjase talk, she transmits the contact to Billy later on so he can type it out. But it's a mental transmission. Okay, I have come to the conclusion that you do not carry out your transmissions personally, but have them transmitted by a machine or something similar. The reason for this could be that you suffer from the same evil as we human beings on earth, namely that you also cannot remember word for word what has been spoken between us or elsewhere. But since the subconscious potencies never forget about anything, and you can tap into them with certainty, you will do this with a machine or something, which then radiates everything to me. These are my basic considerations. Of course, I can be wrong in all things, but the degree of probability of these considerations seems to me to be the greatest. These considerations would also be compatible with the fact that not a single word is repeated in your transmissions, and that I therefore often have great difficulty in writing down the sentences and words coming in at normal speaking speed quickly enough. So she bombards him with this, like a playback of their conversation, and he's got to try to type it out, and he's only got one arm. So from what I understand, he types really fast with that one arm, but he's rushing trying to keep up. Okay, Semjase, if I had not personally heard this declaration from you, and if it had been brought to my attention by a third person, I would doubt its authenticity and first have to check it. But I have heard them myself and know their authenticity. Your explanation is very surprising to me, and your explanatory logic of a kind that actually frightens me. By the way, I should tell you that Quetzal is coming to construct a small apparatus that will allow you and your typewriter to write much faster. Quetzal is another player. Okay, we'll hear about him later on. Billy, why does my explanation scare you? I do not understand that. Semjase, you are going to ask? Your explanation is so accurate that I am not only surprised but also frightened. Any abilities in you must have increased enormously during our contact time, which I will clarify. This could become dangerous for the Earth humans if you openly expressed your thoughts in certain areas, because the humans of your world, but especially the scientists, are not yet mature enough for knowledge of such facts. They would endanger and question the lives of your whole world. Did you also think about the details of the apparatus you mentioned? Billy, of course, because when I do something, I want to do it all the way. So I thought about the inner workings of the machine and came across the fact that it is only necessary to have a censorship-free ... Okay, they leave stuff out every so often. I'm sure it's intentional. Semjase, wait, can you explain that? At least not to the humans of your world? I told you this could be very dangerous. Your scientists would be able to find their evaluation through this knowledge, whereby they could then completely subjugate Earth humankind within a few years and cast their spell over it. Also, there must be something in the transmission that would allow them to mind control the other Earth humans. So they don't want this information out. And glad for that. Anyway, they would rise up to be gods and do exactly what we want to prevent. I will therefore have to consult with the others and judge everything with them, but I suppose that our High Council will have to make its decision on this, because if we have to eliminate certain things completely, then we have ... Billy, wait, Semjase, are you saying that you want to extinguish something in me? You could wait a long time for that, because then you would experience your blue miracle. It's not that easy for my mother's son to put up with. Semjase, do not get excited, because firstly, I cannot decide for myself, and secondly, you would not feel anything and would not be affected in any way later in life. It is only a matter of removing the knowledge about a certain system of elements that you have become aware of through your reflections. They're talking about taking away his thoughts. Billy, and you think I will just let you process my brain into solid and let me voluntarily erase my personal ideas? Semjase, if that's how it's supposed to be, do not get excited about it. Billy, you give me fantastic hopes, but I do not think I would just let that happen. Semjase, our possibilities in this respect are so very precise and of absolute security that you would neither be able to do anything about it nor feel the slightest bit. They could sneak in there and steal his thoughts. Billy, I would know that something is simply no longer present in me, yes? Semjase, sure, because it only removes a certain factor but not your memories. Billy, well, that's fine. Then I could fight it at all, after all. Billy, well, that's fine. Then I could fight it after all. I guess that without my memories, I could no longer fully do justice to my task in our cause, or am I mistaken? He doesn't want his brain picked. Semjase, your logic clarifies the facts. Billy, then do whatever you want, because the consequences are to your detriment and to the detriment of your task. If you think I'm just an experimental rabbit, it is vinegar with everything. Semjase, what are you talking about? I do not want to try or experiment on you. Billy, what's this total damned elimination supposed to be? Semjase, it springs from the knowledge of highly developed science of our breed. The ability and effects of such total eliminations are absolutely certain, and their precision does not allow for the slightest substance of uncertainty or vagueness. Billy, then I am not an experimental rabbit, but a prison rabbit, if you like this designation better. Semjase, I do not understand your agitation, because you will not suffer an iota of harm. Billy, I do not give a damn. My mind is my mind, and that is exactly what it should remain. If you or yours disobey this, then I will just shut down the store, destroy all the material, and travel to the desert or jungle, never to return to civilization again. Wow. I kind of don't blame him. Semjase, you would actually do that? Billy, exactly, and without hesitation. He's done it before. He's run off to the desert. He joined the French Foreign Legion. He's trucked across the desert without water or food for days and days. Yeah, I think he would do it. Semjase, you would destroy your own task and ours? Billy, have I not made myself clear enough? Semjase, now I actually do not understand you. Billy, do you really believe that I let my own thoughts simply be taken away from me when I otherwise have to develop my conscious and spiritual knowledge with effort and misery as a poor earthworm? Do you know me so little that you believe that you can simply erase my achieved ideas? That is damn illogical of you, and that's exactly what I do not think you were capable of. But you and yours can have it now. Have it now, we want you. Either you do not radio around in my brain, etc., or we talked the last time. Stay out of my head is what he's saying. Semjase, you are sticking with it? Billy, was my lecture not clear enough? Semjase, I just want to be sure, and I see your eyes speak the same language. Your emotional vibrations also bear witness with clarity to the authenticity of your words. I am very sorry I upset you with my clarifications. Neither I nor the others want to jeopardize our mission or cause you any harm. Therefore, I believe I can also answer for it if I make the promise to you under a regulation ... Okay, so I guess she's not going to scramble his brain. Billy, I do not rely on things of faith. You know that as well as I do. Semjase, I want to explain with my words that I can certainly be responsible for not manipulating a total elimination if you tell me that you will never say a word about your knowledge to anyone. Billy, I am amazed at your crazy behavior, Semjase, because there is so much unclear in it. You know very well that I never swear hot and pompous oaths, but that a yes or no with me answers a question decisively. So why do you not ask me at the beginning whether I want to keep silent about the facts mentioned or not? To which you would then have received the corresponding answer, namely that I am silent. If you consider this to be good, then why are you throwing skyscrapers at me and threatening me, so to speak, with a total elimination of the knowledge in question? That is incomprehensible to me. At least she's talking to him about it. Semjase, it would have been easy for you to understand if you had not played up your agitation. You would have come across the logic of my statements. But now that you cannot do that, I want to explain it to you. The total elimination of the knowledge factor was only well meant by me because you would no longer be exposed to any dangers. If you no longer had the knowledge, then nobody would ever be able to elicit it from you, not even with Gewalt, which unfortunately must be reckoned with because this possibility must also be taken into consideration. You have now given me your word that you will keep silence about your knowledge, and I know that this corresponds to your honesty. In this form, however, you could be coaxed from your knowledge through coercion and violence without you wanting to do so. This means a factor of uncertainty that would be eliminated by total elimination. It could be that the ... Billy, wait a minute, Semjase. Whoa, wait a minute, I lost my spot. Billy, wait a minute, Semjase. Now the penny has really fallen with me, and I understand you completely. But I would like to say that you thought a little too little before you raised my hat, because there is a third possibility, which is ... Semjase, that is illogical because I have considered all possibilities and factors. Billy, if you believe that, then you are wrong wrapped. Semjase, I do not understand the meaning of your words. Billy, that means quite simply, if you assume that you have considered all possibilities, then you think something unclear or a winding in you is burned out. In other words, this can also mean that I suspect you of a bang in your brain or that you have recently taken a bath that was too hot. Whatever. Semjase first makes an astonished face and then suddenly laughs off in a resounding sound. That, ha ha, I find amusing. Ha ha ha. That I really amusing that you will have to tell the others. Ha ha ha. Dot dot dot. I am glad that you are joking again, even though I am always wondering how incredibly fast you can control your feelings and give them a different direction. But you mentioned another possibility earlier. I do not know of any. Billy, it is a compromise solution. Semjase, I am not considering such possibilities, and I would not see any in that case. Billy, nevertheless, they do exist, and I find them very good. In my mind, it would say that this is the closest possibility and would be the fairest if it could be reconciled with time. You have already taken my word, but I would still like to make my suggestion. But first, I have to know the timetable for a total elimination. How much time would such a total elimination take from order to completion? Semjase, I do not understand the meaning of your question, but I can tell you exactly how long it'll take. If we put our equipment into operation, which is always on standby for such total eliminations, and adjust it to the life form in question, then this takes less than 3 minutes, whereby the distance plays no role whatsoever. So they could do it from Era. They could wipe his brain, at least wipe that knowledge out of his brain. Billy, and how much time do you need if I would give the order on mental basis via your person? Semjase, I still do not see clearly, but we would need another minute to transmit your error. Billy, well, that would be less than 4 minutes in total, if I understood correctly. Yes? Semjase, sure. Billy, so here my compromise solution. I keep my knowledge to myself at all costs. If, however, the situation should arise in which I am forced with Gewalt to disclose the secret, then I will send my thoughts to you, after which you will initiate total elimination by the quickest route. Semjase makes a very surprised face. Billy, is that so incomprehensible? Semjase, I should have gone through these logical trains of thought myself. This solution is even very good, and it saves me a lot of effort and words. Billy, okay, so once I was way ahead of you, but now what? Semjase, what do we do now? I admire your logical acumen something or other. I will present your proposal to the others and also submit it to our High Council. But I am sure they all agree with your suggestion. Billy, so basically he's saying that if he was kidnapped by some evil forces and they tortured him to get this information out of him, he'd just send them a thought and they would wipe his brain right then and there. Take 4 minutes. Because thoughts travel beyond light. Thoughts would be an era in a moment, from what I understand. So, and he's capable of doing that. He's proved it. Okay, Billy. Then the case is closed and can finally be buried. But now I would like to pick up one more thing that we once talked about before saying goodbye, namely about crystals and precious stones, which, according to your interpretations, can become very dangerous for humans if they are in their possession or are even worn. Billy, but I have already told you about that. Billy, actually, I'm sorry, Semjase, but I have already told you about that. Billy, of course, but I have talked to someone about these things, and we have come to the conclusion that it would be only right and proper for us to describe this in detail in our contact reports because it is important to humans. Semjase, that sounds logical, and so I will discuss the individual facts again. All crystals, semi-crystals, gemstones, and semi-precious stones, as well as various minerals of earthly origin, are recipients and transmitters of human emotional impulses and thought energies in larger masses or in high carat values. Depending on their type, they store less or more of these energies, which are discharged onto their owners in a concentrated manner again and influence them to a great extent. But now, the earthly sphere is due to negative human thought vibrations which surround the earth like a vibrating mantle in an energy state of highest negative forces. Let me go over that one more time. But now the earthly sphere is due to negative human thought vibrations which surround the earth like a vibrating mantle in an energy state of highest negative forces. These negative forces were created and are further developed every second by the tremendous negative thought energies of the earthly human life forms, which, through their heresies and many negativities, put the whole world under the spell of spoiling and dangerous radiations. So we're radiating ourselves with our evil thoughts. However, since crystals of all kinds, as well as precious stones and various minerals, etc., are very strong absorbers and recipients of such energies, it could not fail that they have been excessively charged in negative form by these negative human thought energies and have become dangerous bringers of distress and misery. Depending on their species and characteristics, many of them become mediators of disease, infirmity, and death if they were large enough or powerful enough to be possessed by humans. Especially crystals and gemstones of all kinds are very sensitive recipients and collectors of negative as well as positive human thought energies and negative and positive emotions. They are therefore already severely affected at their actual growth sites before they are found by humans. This is due to the very strong negative force that surrounds the earth. But if man now wants to have crystals and precious stones in his possession, to possess them as values, to use them as jewelry or as health bringer, then he must first free them from the dangerous radiation that occurs in vibrational form. For otherwise, they are able to bring death and destruction upon him. In addition, it is absolutely necessary that the crystals and gems, etc., are large enough and of sufficient carat value and are subjected to a new neutralization at least every 5 years, because through the enormous negative thought energies of earthly mankind, they recharge themselves after this time with the negative forces mentioned within only a few hours. I guess that's why we're only living to 60 years old or 90 years old when on her world they go to like 1,000. The neutralization can be carried out by a pyramid, by running water, or by a simple apparatus, which I will describe after my explanations. If man does not subject his possessions of the kind mentioned to the necessary neutralization, if this is already known to him, then he should not be surprised if he is strongly persecuted by illnesses, misfortunes, misery, and need, by infirmity, by misfortune, and even by death and destruction. Man also has the tendency to wear many so-called talismans, etc., for his protection, etc. But he is not aware that practically all these talismans and other followers are completely useless and only, according to their faith, allegedly do some good things because they are too small in size or carat value. On the other hand, the wearers of such things do not know that they are exposed to great dangers by these followers, etc., and often even risk their lives because these things too, despite their small size, are often very strong recipients of negative powers of thought and hurl the captured powers back to the owner and wearer, who mentally and emotionally strengthens them and forces them to disaster. Therefore, from time to time, such things also have to be neutralized, because this is far below 5 years. Depending on the mineral or material, their time ranges from 6 months to around 2 years. Crystals and precious stones, as well as minerals, etc., of extraterrestrial origin, are highly recommended if they come from worlds that are either uninhabited or harbor very balanced life forms. Things of these kinds of such worlds have not been influenced for many millennia by degenerated, negative human thought forces, as is the case on Earth. Crystals and precious stones, etc., must be exposed to a strong negative bombardment for several millennia before they become such receivers as those of the Earth. Of course, the cleaning process can also be reduced to a few minutes if purpose-built equipment is used. Basically, however, crystals, minerals, and gemstones of any kind, etc., are recipients and emitters of good positive forms of energy when they grow in balanced worlds. This in embodiment of the universal law of nature. If, however, they are carried directly on themselves by thought-capable life forms, then they adapt very quickly to this life form and receive and send off the energies inherent in this life form. If, however, a negative form of energy thousands of years old fires at them, as is the case on Earth, then they affect species in the negative. But the opposite form is also possible, but it is foreign on your Earth, namely the positively degenerated form. Crystals, minerals, and precious stones, etc., from balanced worlds do not have to undergo any neutralization on Earth in relation to negative thought energies. This would only be necessary if they had been touched or unaffected by malign negative forces for 2 to 4 millennia, depending on their nature and characteristics, before they were taken over by a human being. If, however, because these times they are taken possession of and carried on by human beings, then they need only a simple purification every 7 years, but never a neutralization. Billy, how about pearls? Semjase, they have the same properties as gemstones, crystals, minerals, etc. Aha. And how is it that with this neutralization you mentioned, can you simply use water or other things for it? Or can you possibly achieve this neutralization by incantations or secret formulas, etc.? Semjase, I have already explained to you that this is all nonsense. Billy, I know you are. I ask the question because your interpretation is important for my fellow men, and they are to know the truth. Semjase, of course, you have already explained that. A neutralization or even a simple purification of the things mentioned cannot be carried out by secret formulas and incantations, but only by water or pyramids, as well as by other things falling within this framework. For neutralization or simple purification, it is necessary to have a special apparatus that absorbs and neutralizes the above-mentioned energies. This means that vibrations can also be deducted from the crystals or gemstones, etc., by other means and converted into neutral forces. The neutral forces are then absorbed again by the crystals and gemstones, etc., and form the balanced force for a certain duration. This is the case with neutralization. In case of purification, only from time to time the degenerated forces of negative or positive form that have penetrated are absorbed, but they are simply released. A recharging of the crystals or gemstones, etc., is not necessary in this case because they are able to generate their compensating forces themselves in their natural law suitability. If I have mentioned that such crystals and gemstones, etc., only have to be purified every 7 years, then this is only necessary if the person wearing them has degenerated very negatively, e.g., torturers who feel joy in the torture of other humans. So if you're a good person, you don't have to purify them every 7 years. If you're evil, rotten scumbag, yeah. Okay. Crystals and precious stones, etc., which are in the possession of normally positive or negative human beings, which are not in any way disfiguring, must never be subjected to purification, provided, of course, that the stones, etc., are in a balanced and purified, as well as originally neutral state and origin. Because on your earth only these possess the natural and great forces which are valuable and usable for man. Billy, that should be clear enough. No further explanation is required, but you also explained that you would give a description for the required equipment. Semjase, sure, but for now only you should know the details because perhaps you can gain a financial advantage that will help you overcome your financial problems. The following is therefore necessary. And then she gives an exact manufacturing plan that follows. ... Billy, thank you, Semjase. That is very easy to construct in itself, and I will perhaps also produce this apparatus in time and opportunity. But now it should be enough for today because I have to catch up on some sleep. Arahat Atharsada sent me another message continuation on Monday, which took me the whole day, after which I naturally had to do many things and work all night, which I had missed during the day. Then early in the morning at 2 o'clock, I came to your contact, and after that I worked on until the afternoon because I got some visitors. After the visit, I wanted to get some sleep, and you gave me the report I had to write. At 01:30 hours, I was finally able to go to bed, and at 9 o'clock, I was called back to the telephone. The sleep time was after 42 and a half hours awake, therefore somewhat scarce. Therefore, I would like to catch up now on some sleep. And that is the end of contact report. Before I say it wrong, let me make sure. This is contact 2022, I think. Hang on. Almost there. Yeah, this is contact report 22. And this is Larry signing off for another contact report. We'll catch you on 23. Thanks for listening. See ya.